cohort thrives do receive sanitary wear. But our major achievement is not the sanitary wear. We are seeing that just in Africa, every month, these girls are able to reach out their fellows who are over 4,500 per month with the HIV information and SRHR information, because we empower the cohort to become ambassadors of change in the areas where they live. Then they come and tell us the challenges they have met in those areas. Another outstanding thing is that they engage in stakeholder engagement with their local leaders to ensure that local governments can come up with bylaws that protect the young girls against, for example, teenage pregnancy, that protect them against gender-based violence and many other things. I have already highlighted the others in line with economic empowerment, school fees support, and mental health hygiene. So that is some of our work. I think the first picture was in Eswatini or Sierra Leone. Forgive my remembrance. Then here we were celebrating the International Women's Day in South Africa. Next slide, please. So the ones in Uganda were able to carry on stakeholder engagement with the Minister of Gender and Social Development. In line with this was the International Women's Day, where they were looking at how they can address barriers to ending gender-based violence among adolescent girls and young women in Uganda. So away from that, as I've already told you, you will say, why is our focus only girls? It's not like that. So we focus on the girls in specific areas of operation, like the slum areas. But our central point of view aims at ensuring that the boy child is not left behind, because empowering the girl child without the gentleman takes them back to the same men who will expose them to danger. So we have our YPP program where we also engage the men in the similar program, but this one is central to ensuring that men are part of these discussions. So under the YPP, since I've already said it's central, these people do counseling and guidance. They act as treatment supporters to people living, to their fellow living with HIV, and also train them to become better citizens. Next slide. So our key issues were that we highlighted that with this YPP program, it was able to support the non-suppressing young people living with HIV. Their retention in care improved because every time we assigned them their fellow young people, they would keep their appointments. Their follow-up was eased. Their retention in care and those lost to follow were easily traced back, with an element of psychosocial support, as we have already. Next. So our key take-homes from this program were just one that, due to time, I will just let us run through it, that mentorship is key in capacity of all these programs, because we have mentored them to live even without us, that even in our absentia, they can teach their colleagues. And also paying data, information as your programming is key, because we never implement our project where we feel there is no need. We engage with the district or government officials to highlight what their data or information says about gender-based violence, what it says about teenage pregnancy. And then the Girls Act program targets those specific areas, while the YPP remains in the broader picture of our countries of operation. I think that's all. I thank you all for listening to me.
Good morning, everyone. We just wanted to find out if there's any questions regarding the presentation. I'm coming to you. So please, can you grab your mic to answer as well? Thank you.
Good morning. I am Samuel. I come from Ivory Coast. I speak French. I want to know some things. Do you work in French-speaking African countries? If so, which ones? If not, why not?
Thank you very much. AIDS Healthcare Foundation being an international organization that has been in Africa for the last 24 years, and their main area operation countries have been East and Southern Africa. But over the years, they decided to move to West Africa, where they are now in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and this year we are moving to Ghana. We have decided to also take on Senegal next year as our first French-speaking country. So come next year, we shall be in Ghana, and an organization is open to growing each and every year. Thank you.
Any more questions?
All right, thank you so much, Joseph. I think you raised a point around also working with young men and boys under the Girls Act project. So I wanted to follow up more to say, is it more on empowering the boys, or it's maybe having the boys supporting the girls under the project? Because you see, we are doing of more girls empowerment, but in the process, we are now having, we might even risk having young women who are more empowered, and you won't have a young man who is able to handle the empowered woman. So I wanted to follow up to say, is it more of also counter-empowering the young men and also challenging issues around negative male masculinity and so forth?
Exactly. Our program, as I've already told you, whereas the Girls Act empowers the women, the Young People's Program that we internally call the YPP looks at integrating these people, integrating the discussions about adolescent girls and young women, and then with the men. So during these trainings and empowerment sessions, we are looking at masculinity, we are empowering the men to become better, to also ensure that we counter gender-based violence in future. Because if we empower the girl child alone through the Girls Act program and we are sending them to a community that is not transformed, it poses a risk towards our change that we are aiming at.
Ladies and gentlemen, are we done with the questions? We are. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Can you give him a round of applause? We're about to start our second session. Can all the panelists please come through?
All right, thank you. So this session is about now I know my status, what next? And it's meant to have been taken by Franca, but unfortunately due to some issues this morning, she's not here. She's the founder and team lead of Ladasha Development Initiative. She's a youth delegate from Nigeria. Next slide, please. So it's meant to be a youth capacity building session for 45 minutes. We don't have time to do all this introduction of participants. So, okay. We're also meant to have innovative discussions and sharing of IC materials, and also have interactive network for post-ICASA. Oh, sorry. Oh, what did I do? Okay, good. So, what the target audience here is meant for young people, key population, and advocates. And what this session is meant to do is to help around having discussions surrounding youth mentorship, taking further responsibilities within the African communities, sharing best practices across Africa with success stories and lessons from our organization, and inspiring the next generation for African change makers in global health, especially girls and women's health. And we have youth advocates all seated here who would also be having questions, and then they'll be responding to it. So this is the session objectives. I'm not going to go over that because I want us to have enough time for the panelists. But the expected outcome is for us to have increased knowledge, strengthen youth networks, more formidable international youth community, and particularly capacity building of women and girls. So this is just about real stories, and that's what brought about us having this session. I recently heard a story from a friend about how she was saved from contracting HIV by abstaining from random unprotected sex with their fiancé. Another was the premarital testing in her church later revealed that the fiancé was positive, and unfortunately he's dead now, but she's now happily married with children. Abstinence saved her life. Helping and guiding young people through mentorship to make informed choices is key to reshaping the narrative on strategic HIV prevention programming. And also promoting intentional and safe voluntary testing is also key. So this plenary intends to engage youth in constructive, thought-provoking discussions that will stir and inspire them to take fresh, innovative actions for prevention of the virus within their community. So before we go on to recommendations, so I think we'll just quickly go now to the panelists. So for the panelists, we have questions that you're going to take. And permit me, I'll just go into those questions. Now, I'm going to be starting with Bongi. Yes. Practically, how do you suggest that we turn all that we have learned from this conference into action, stopping further infections, especially amongst adolescents in Africa? And I would like you to give us real-life behavioral changes, especially for adolescent girls and young women, now in settings where they are displaced or they do not even have access to education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, my name is Ndhlovu from Eohealth Foundation. And what we do is that we provide health literacy, but in a digital platform format, because we believe that that is where young people are. And this is a very critical question because we see conference after conference, we see engagement after engagement, but the only way that we can start tracking impact is if we take what is discussed here and make sure that it lands to the people who really need the information. So at Eohealth, what we do is that we specifically attend events such as these so that we can then go have content online that we can change and make it palatable to young people and then disseminate it, because therein lies the gap. I think what we've seen in our interaction with young people is that there's just two types of young people. It's either you're health literate and you get it, or you're not. And unfortunately, when we come to such conferences, we're speaking to each other as health literate people, and it almost seems so obvious. Like, for example, in South Africa, when PrEP first came through, we all thought it was a miracle drug. We were excited because it's us speaking to the choir. And as it landed on young people's ears, they were the first to say, oh, hell no. A pill every day to prevent, a pill every day. And that's just a typical example of why it's important to then try and package health literacy in a way that is palatable to young people. So if we take it a step back and we go, whose responsibility is it to teach young people to be health literate? That is one of the first challenges that we have, because there isn't a sole responsibility, because within the Department of Education, I don't know about other African countries, but in mine specifically, there is what we call life orientation class, and that life orientation class only has one module that they cover throughout the whole year that covers health. And sexual health is even a unit in that module. So you can understand that something that is so serious that can affect young people can technically only ever have that source of reference, which doesn't even resemble their lives most of the time. So we then have a challenge of whose responsibility is it to provide the health literacy, where the parents are saying the teachers should be doing it, and the teachers are saying, no, this is a home discussion, And the NGOs, us, we are excited from ICASA coming back with all these high jargon words like lenacapavir, PrEP and ARV and treatments and testing. And as a young person, you are left going, this does not sound like me or something that I should be doing. So then the question is, who's supposed to be doing that? How are we supposed to be reaching young people? And how do we ensure that as healthcare workers or healthcare professions, we leave the jargon behind and we start engaging with young people in the way that they talk, in the places where they engage, and also understand that we are competing with other information that they are consuming as well. Right now, we are consuming with entertainment, we are competing with fashion, brands, we are competing with alcohol, we're competing with sports. And so how then is this health information going to be positioned in such a way that it is information that young people think that they need? And therein, I think, lies the work. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So what you've pushed out to everyone is we need to ensure that young people are literate, particularly about comprehensive HIV information, because it's one thing for us to sit in one room to create the information content. It's another thing for it to go out. You have parents pushing it to teacher pushing it back to NGO. So it's meant to be a collective action. Parents, the education system, the non-even education system, and the NGOs working together to ensure that young people are actually health literate. And I think you've covered what are the hindrances to abstinences, because young people do not have information. And they don't have information in the language that they understand. So that's one thing. We must ensure that in putting out our content, in putting out our information, it has to be one that young people resonate with, that they understand, and it's easy for them to be able to use to influence their practice. Thank you very much. So we're going to go to Daniel. Daniel Lovier. Is Daniel here? Okay, you're representing Daniel. Thank you. So we're going to take you through, do you have any best practice and innovative strategies from your work that you have done in your country that you can share with us to encourage that young people are able to take self-tests, know their HIV status, and stay protected?
Thank you so much. Back in my country, Uganda, I support a project, as I've already shown you, the YPP program. Under this program, we ensure that the young people get a safe space. So under this safe space that is within a government facility that we attain through great advocacy and ensuring that the young people need a safe space for them. So under this safe space, we have a young fellow male counselor or young girl who is their fellow counselor, who is always there from Monday to Saturday, ensuring that when these people walk in, they can be able to talk to them, and she guides them through the service that they intend to get to. And it is way beyond what service they intend to, because we are in an era of choice. Sometimes when they walk in and the commodity or service they need is not being provided by us. For example, some of them come in need of Kabla, because in my country there are facilities that are already doing the Kabla. These people have been empowered. We have given them a database whereby they can be able to refer this person to a facility that has a service this person desires. Because this is an era of choice, you cannot tell me you can use this if I tell you this is what is comfortable for me. So we find that this is working, that they are continuously coming back without judgment, because in the previous setting, we have seen our fellow young people, after 1 month, they come for PEP. After 3 to 4 months, they will return for PEP. The old health worker will start judging. Will be like, but you, I think I saw you in April, and you're back in August. That alone will deprive this young person never to return to that health facility. So we ensured that our services become friendly in a nature that these young people have a language of communication that we to ourselves as young people understand, and the old people may be in presence, but they may never understand even what topic we are discussing at that time. So that alone creates a safe space for us. And away from the safe space, we have ensured that away from returning, to the people who have tested positive, we have what we call ensuring that they start treatment as soon as possible. Because previously we used to lose these young people by giving them, they have just tested positive, let's give them what they can. But we go on to tell them about You Equals You, that come on, treatment works as a prevention for your loved ones. It is best you start treatment as early as today to ensure that your girlfriend, your boyfriend is protected, or your baby, if at all you're pregnant. So that alone has ensured that these people make informed health choices in line with testing for HIV, in line with being retained into care and starting treatment as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. So what I hear you clearly is that we have adolescent youth-friendly services being provided within our health facilities. That in turn means that we have healthcare providers who are non-judgmental. They've been trained, and as such, it creates a safe space for young people. They're able to access services, testing, and even prep there in those services. Hearing you also in your presentation that you made, you talked about building capacity of girls, and those girls are able to reach out to their peers, and that way they've been able to encourage others even to go for services, and also to for those who are positive among them to continue treatment. So peer-to-peer engagement is one thing that has helped, and having adolescent youth-friendly services within our health facilities. I know we're all moving towards integration. We are running away from the silos, so having those safe spaces within the health facilities and with trained healthcare workers is the way to go. Thank you for that. We're going to go to Godfrey Kambewa from Malawi. Okay, so you're taking this. All right. How can we demystify HIV tests and curb the stigma surrounding it? From the gender perspective, what is your opinion about... Okay, maybe we'll allow you to take the first question and then we move to the next question. Yeah, let's have you. So how can we demystify HIV tests and curb the stigma surrounding it? Sorry? Yeah, so that's your question. How can we demystify HIV tests and curb the stigma surrounding it?
Okay, thank you. I think maybe that was a mistake. My name is Christy.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, from Zimbabwe. So, as I can see, after demystifying stigma in HIV testing services, what is important is to note that youth mainly participate in HIV testing and counseling services when they are involved in programs like youth testing advocacy. So when youth are advocating for HIV testing services, peers, when they are educating other peers, it became easy it became easy for other peers to understand what does it mean by HIV testing, window periods and stuff, because peers are more, the message from peers is more stronger than the message that it can go to young people from the elders. So what is important is to ensure that the HIV testing programs are mainly advocated by youth to ensure that other youth are also involved in receiving those services, because they are only youth who knows where to get other youth. Sometimes you find that youth are found in clubs, they are found in sports clubs, they are found in sports clubs, they are found in social media and stuff. So it is important to enroll a young person to advocate for those services to other young people, so that the young people accept what are the decision policymakers are trying to say and they are trying to implement. Because the stigma and discrimination is likely to be suffered, is likely to happen in the community when there is no peer advocacy. But when peer advocacy takes place, what it means is that stigma and discrimination will be attacked, because peers are more likely to understand the message from other peers.
Thank you very much. So we have that coming again, the peer-to-peer support for testing. And this is very important if we are to demystify HIV. Now, from the gender perspective, what's your opinion about gender-based violence, rape, and abuse? And can you tell us, maybe from your country perspective, the role of faith-based organizations, NGOs, or CSOs in reducing the impact on mental health of adolescent girls and women, particularly when those who have gone through this may have to go for testing, or they may have been infected and have to get services. So let's have your view on that. Still for you. From the gender perspective, what is your opinion about GBV rape and abuse? So tell us the role that CSOs or faith-based organizations or NGOs can play to reduce the impact of mental health of girls who may have been raped, and then at the end of the day, they may have HIV. What can the CSOs, NGOs, or faith-based organizations do, particularly to address the mental health challenges that they may have from this?
Oh, thank you once again. For example, in Zimbabwe, we have NGO, we have organizations which support the mental health system, like the Shantiri organization, that is, I think maybe it is a regional organization, and many parts of the Southern Africa, it is also available. So the Shantiri organization is advocate services to do with mental health, and unfortunately, the young peers also offer that mental health support by the Shona symptom questionnaire, which involves which have a lineup of about 15 questions, and those 15 questions, there are some strategic questions that are dedicated to that. If a person answers yes to that question or answer no to that question, that person is you need to be referred to a psychological specialist or a clinical psychologist. More so, when implementing the programs which prevents SGBV and GBV as well, we do partnerships with victim-friendly unity. The victim-friendly unity is part of the police force. So what happens is, sometimes you find out that in rural areas, there's this tradition like a young person can be raped by a family member. But when that young person is raped by a family member, that information becomes very hard to reach the police force. So what the channel that can be used, because in rural areas they say, if it is a family member, they say, no, this is a family issue, we need to solve it as a family challenge. No one must spread it out. So at the end of the day, we found out that case is not going to be reported to the police force. So what does Randiri do? The Randiri cooperates with the chiefs and the headmen. Once it cooperates with the chiefs and the headmen, unfortunately it was last year in November when it planned this program, which is the Not in My Village campaign. The Not in My Village campaign was introduced to the president as a proposal to deal with the challenge of sexual abuse and as well as SGBV. So, and the president accepted it. So how does this work? The political system tries to give the power back to the chiefs and the headmen. So Not in My Village campaign is now the power in the hands of the chiefs, whereby the chiefs will be saying, no, there should be no child marriages in my village. There should be no SGBV in my jurisdiction. So what will happen now is that when anything to do with child marriage happens in a jurisdiction, once, let us say it is a child marriage, it is now the challenge. The case is now not in the hands of the police. It is now in the hands of the chief. So let us say a child marriage takes place in a local community. The local community members were also told, once you notice something like that, come and report and you get something from doing so. So what happens is, once a challenge is counted in the community, a family member is likely to go to the chief. I saw this and this and this and this happening to this village. So the chief is not taking the case to the police, but the chief is taking a village court or a jurisdictional court on his own power. So after doing so, a chief will figure out if this case is too serious to be handed over to the police case. And in doing so, we find out in Zimbabwe, the range of child marriages is now decreasing. Why? Because some of the problems which are taking place in very remote areas, in rural areas, those cases were not discovered, but right now they are now being cultivated because the powers were put in the hands of the chiefs and headmen.
Thank you very much. So I see what you mentioned here. Addressing the mental health issues starts from the fact that we're enabling the community structures to be able to identify these issues, support the survivors, and then get them to also have access to the mental health units. I also heard you talk about the fact that the mental health unit, there are screening questions when women access services, and once there's a yes to maybe certain questions, they're referred appropriately to get services, mental health services. So we see here where the community and the government system is working together. So it's a multi-sectoral approach to addressing not just only GBV, but also the mental health issues that young people have. George, we bring you here. What is the relationship between HIV, STI, and still on mental health? And what are the predisposing factors and intersecting lines? And how should it be integrated into HIV prevention and treatment? So you have a mouthful of questions. What is the relationship between HIV, STI, and mental health? What can predispose one to it? And what are the intersecting lines, and how should it be integrated into HIV care and treatment?
Yeah,
Thank you
very much. So the question itself, I believe, should be hinged on the definition of mental health in itself, right? Once we understand the definition of mental health, then we'll be able to understand how mental health and HIV and STIs are intersecting, right? Mental health has to do with the state of the mind. How is your mind doing at that particular time? No one here would not agree with me that when somebody is waking up one morning and then going for a test and realizing that they're HIV positive, something is not happening with their mind at that moment, right? So it comes with fear, it comes with fear of stigma, it comes with depression, anxiety, and a whole lot of other things, right? So the moment HIV gets into the picture, mental health is also definitely going to be affected, right? So now, we already have a part of mental health within the counseling structure that comes before HIV testing. However, when we do not, make it distinct, it becomes harder for us to provide effective services to people, young people specifically, because when you're doing counseling, you are not touching so much on the mental state, you are not touching so much on how they can manage their mental health, they can manage their anxiety or anything like that. You're just touching on what happens when you find out that you are positive. You're trying to give them hope that, okay, after the testing and you find out you are positive, these are the next set of things you should do, right? But then it goes beyond that. Mental health, I call it mental health resilience or mental health first aid, goes beyond just giving hope. It goes beyond that. It allows you to, expects you to provide practical steps that they can take from that moment onward to ensure that they maintain a good mental health and have, build a good mental resilience structure around their lives such that, I always have this very funny belief as well that most accident victims don't die because of the accident. They die because of the fear of whatever it is they are seeing. So sometimes you get into an accident and before you see maybe the blood, you are not feeling anything. But the moment you see the blood gushing out and then the fear comes in and then, that makes the blood flow faster and, a whole lot of cardiac whatever, right? So same thing comes with HIV, right? When HIV is detected or even, yes, when HIV is detected, a whole lot of things happen with the mind, right? So if we want to ensure that we don't lose people even before they start their treatment, then the aspect of adding mental health to the service package of HIV services is very important for us moving forward, right? So that means after testing and the person gets to know that probably they are positive, the next step would be to see a trained psychiatrist or trained psychologist who will go ahead to, build their, should I say, provide mental health first aid at that moment, such that going forward, they know what to do. They know that, okay, when I'm anxious, it's okay. I'm not mad. I'm not crazy. Oh, when I'm feeling this type of way, this is what I'm feeling. Recognizing their emotions and how to deal with it, right? So all of these things are what makes mental health services important, right? So what are the predisposing factors? It includes anxiety, fear of stigma, and the fact that they believe, like most of them, right, because that might be their first time of hearing about HIV, closed shut. Yes, most of them will have seen it on TV or watch it in movies, but that's the first time they're having like a close proximity with the virus. So the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I'm dead. Nothing is going to happen. I'm dead, right? So, but that whole anxiety episode can be managed, right? So if we see all those things that I just mentioned, all these underlying factors that allows for both HIV and STIs to be like on the same pedestal with mental health related issues, it means that once we agree with that, it means that we need to now start looking at ways to include mental health first aid and mental health resilience into our programming. We're already doing that in Lagos, back home. As I sit here, some of my team are back home doing an HIV outreach, and we have a psychologist on site who is going to be training the participants on mental health resilience as well. So this is something that I believe is a best practice that everybody should take away from this panel. So as you are planning your outreaches, plan to have a psychologist on site such that if anything happens, there's somebody that can provide mental health first aid, because it's as important as the testing itself, right? Because sometimes people commit suicide just by knowing their HIV status, nothing else, right? You have given them hope, oh, there's life after HIV and all that, but that whole process is still new to them, right? So the person that is doing the counselor tester might not have that requisite professionalism to provide that service, and you are going to lose that person, right? So that's what I think.
Thank you very much. So what resonates and comes in here is that for our counselors testers, they must be trained on how to provide psychological first aid, such that it's not just for you to provide the counseling about the virus and about the results, but also to be able to provide the necessary skills that is needed for that person to manage themselves and their mental health going forward. Before we call on Franca to the stage to round up, I'd like us to give us one word: mental health and HIV and knowing your status. What's running through your mind? I'll start with you. Yes, my second lady in pink. Yes.
Can I have the words again?
So just one sentence or what runs through your mind when you're looking at mental health and knowing your status and how to keep up after you know your status. What comes to your mind?
I think it's a birthright. I think it's something that should be taking place as easily as brushing your teeth. So it should form part of our lives, whether we are young, married, not engaged. My mom used to say we should all live like we have it. So it should become an everyday part of our lives, prevention, that is.
Thank you very much. So mental health resilience should be everyday part of our lives, and knowing our status should not be like a death sentence. Yes, let's have you.
Oh, thank you. As I can say, mental health also cannot be attributed to the person, to a person who tested HIV positive, that to be fearing to that person to commit suicide. But as well, a mental health can be also offered to a person who got HIV negative. Why? Because sometimes there's this sense people tend to say when a person comes for HIV testing and tested negative, they say, you are okay, going to continue to do what you are doing. And sometimes, as we can see that statement, it's a red flag statement, because sometimes that person was doing something that was risky, but the fact that he or she was still negative needs more guidance on that. And that way mental health also can be used, because when a person tested negative, you start to give that person counseling. That is why it is HIV testing and counseling. Then these are your results. There is a potential, or you continue to have these results if you do this and this and this and this. It is important for you to continue doing this and this to get this status. Please avoid this and this. Then it will awaken the mindset of a person to know, no, the way I was working was not right. The way I was doing this thing was not right. I was putting myself on risk, but unfortunately, I thank God I'm still negative. Then that person will be mentally supported, because it's rather than saying, you are negative, go and continue doing what you are doing. Maybe that person was on a red line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's speaking to the mental consciousness of persons, even if you're negative, but the counselor should take cognizance of the fact that the post-test counseling, whether you're negative, has to still ensure that you talk about how they continue to stay HIV negative and speaking to their mental consciousness. So let's have you. Yeah. HIV, mental health. David, George, before we come to you.
So when I hear that in a sentence, what comes to my mind is having a higher will to live, right? When I am doing MHPSS, so I'm providing MHPSS services, one of the major things I make sure that I'm speaking continuously is for young people to have that higher consciousness, or that will to live should be pumped in more, because once you have that very huge or very important will to live, every other thing that is happening, including knowing your HIV status, amongst other things, that will overshadows them, and it allows you to want to explore every option available to be able to counter whatever is coming. Because now we have testing, we have services, we have drugs that can help you manage it for a longer period of time. Pointing to people that have lived so long and are HIV positive will also help most young people that are just finding out their status newly. And of course, there are young people that were born positive, right? And their parents did not disclose it to them, only for them to find out like later, maybe through our HIV outreaches that happened before, right? Through an HIV outreach, and the boy is finding out, and the boy knows that he is not sexually active and he has not done anything that will make him open to something like that. And he went back home to find out that his parents are actually positive, but they have been giving him drugs anyway, but he did not know what the drugs were for, right? So some of these things can only be battled by that high will to live. So no matter what, you can adopt that as your messaging as well when you're doing your counseling. Have a higher will to live, because if you have a higher will to live, no matter what life throws at you, you have a way to just, box it up. Thank you very much.
A higher will to live, whatever life throws at you, box it up. And then let's have our last panelist.
Just as you've said that mental health and HIV, this goes back to the health workers too, that sometimes they also need the mental health, because the mental health support, because the stories and conversations from girls and boys and people they are caring for sometimes tear them down. You will see health workers who still don't care. They will tell you, I have had worse. Yours is not something. So we should ensure that whereas we are emphasizing mental health for the people who are seeking these services, the service providers too have to be in the right state of mind to ensure that they are diligently providing something, a service that is with a great dignity to these people. So my take home to you would be like, as we are centering mental health to people seeking the services, right, it is true, but the health workers too need mental health because they have had a lot, and sometimes it tears them apart for the rest of their lives.
Thank you very much. I hear you, because those who provide services to always have what we call vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is that trauma that you experience after hearing all of the various stories. So there's a need for us in our various programs that our counselors, testers must be withdrawn, must be allowed to have a period off where they also go through counseling, therapy, because they've heard a lot and obviously they can't say it out. So they need to also have therapy. So we also have to be mindful of that. The mental health status of our testers are also very important as they offer this service, because they too go through what we call vicarious trauma. So it's important that we also have a program for them as well to address their mental health. For our dear panelists, I want to say thank you very much. The conversation has been very rich, very interesting, sharing your experiences. Thank you very much. We have Franca now in the room. I was actually just standing in for Franca because she came in late. So she's going to be rounding up, taking us through this additional information. We've already shared the story, but she'll be taking us to the next slide now, where in the room. Sorry. Guys, this is not working. Okay, because every one of us here, I know we're going to be making commitments. She's going to make us make commitments of what we're going to do. Over to you. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Please, can we put our hands together for... We call her Mommy. Please put your hands together for her. Young at heart and so warm and loving. Good morning, everybody. I want you to look at your neighbor and say something nice to your neighbor. Say something nice to your colleague. You know, we come to ICASA and we're all uptight, and tomorrow ICASA is ending, but, say something nice. Say, I'm glad to be alive. It's a privilege to be alive. I'm breathing. It's a privilege. All right, good morning. So I really want to appreciate everybody. I'm so sorry that I came in a bit late. We're held up in traffic. I'm so sorry about that. I want to appreciate all my panelists and say thank you so much for making the conversation so interesting. Thank you to my boss, my mommy, for making this conversation really impactful and interactive. Because for me, I believe that ICASA is beyond the four walls of this hall and beyond the conference venue. The real impact of what we learn from ICASA is taking it beyond the four walls of the hall and taking it back into our communities and taking it back to our various countries to make impact. Not just impact, but lasting, sustainable impact that will reduce the prevalence rate. I saw the rate in my country and I was really disheartened. I was really sad. So please, we need to go out there. And I'm so interested in this topic because that's the key for us. Testing. We want factual data. We want to know how many people are still positive, how many people are no more positive and on treatment, how many people are negative and we will help stay negative. These are the real facts we need. That's what we need to drop the trend because it's really disheartening. I don't know about you, but that's why when Mommy was talking about mental health issues, I'm a counselor, trained counselor tester, so you can imagine what we see and what we go through. So we need to go back with this message that you may not be directly involved in testing, but you can train your testers so we can have factual data. Thank you. Very soon I would like to add, we're going to be attending the World AIDS Conference, and we're privileged to be working with a couple of our big senior colleagues like Mommy, doctors who are really involved in research and all of that. And we're actually going back into the field. I decided to do an observatory research, so I wanted something beyond the, every day we bring all the empirical, formula, all the data. What are we going to do practically? And for me, my take-home message is this topic on mental health, because a lot of people are either infected or affected. I don't know about you, but I have colleagues along the way who have gone. They're not here. I only look at their pictures and say, this person, and they're gone. They were positive. So this is not something we are talking. It's real. It's happening. You either know someone or you're privileged to know someone's status because you're a counselor, but it's real. So please, if you're in this space, we need to go back with the message of this thing has to drop. And we are going to give them hope. Whether it's about digital apps, digital healthcare, whether it's about any form of innovation, whatever we can do across Africa to make sure Africa is standing out, we should go. Because all of these investments, there's a lot of money in here, a lot of money. I mean, they are investing a lot in us, whether young people or similarly not young people. We should go back with this message. We need to reduce the trend. Okay, so I'm going to quickly look through the recommendations. And then we're going to stand up and we're going to take the pledge. It's a commitment. I hope you know when medical students are graduating, they take something called the oath of, hope we remember. Have we heard? We remember. Yes, you must take the oath that you will not kill patients and you will save lives and put lives first. So, I'm not saying you should come and take any oath, but it's a pledge, it's a commitment to remind yourself. Because after this, what next? We have to make that commitment to work with our public institutions, work with our government parastatals, work with the governments of our nations. Get out of the sitting position, enter the rooms where policies are shaped. I, for instance, by the mercy of God, after my ICASA participation in 2011, I was privileged to go and advocate in my state assembly. Then we had a National Action Committee on AIDS, which is a NACA. Now it's an agency. So at the state level, it was a committee. And we wrote, and then we lobbied, and somehow by the mercy of God, it was translated. We saw that process of transition, and it's now an agency. So you can do so much, whether it's advocacy, lobbying, lobbying for funding, because now we're shifting to the era of internal domestication of funds, like internal revenue generation. We can't keep depending on UNAIDS and UNFP. UNFP, yes, they will spoil us, but I gave that example several times about my state in Nigeria, Delta State, and Akwa Ibom State, where I reside. My husband is from Akwa Ibom. These governors told themselves, we will not borrow. We won't. I mean, Nigeria, and I know some other countries, it's not even only Nigeria, borrow a lot. Say we don't have money, go and borrow the destiny. No, they told themselves, we are going to generate funding. And now the government of Nigeria is going into taxing. So there are other ways we can generate resources. We've talked about FBO involvement. And someone, I think it was yesterday, said, since I paid tithe in your church, I think some days ago, and if the person is positive, say, hey, why can't you help me? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, because the church you belong to, you're paying tithe, you're paying offerings. And now when it's time for help for my ART, can't you help me? So what I'm talking about is looking within us to see how we can generate funding from your government, from your local counties or whatever you call it in your country. We can do it. It's just like crowdfunding. I hope we understand. Are we here? Okay. So we're going to look at our recommendations and our commitment. Please, can you take it back? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I'm sure you've looked through this story and you've gone through everything. The basic story we highlighted here. I was having a discussion with my colleague Bongi yesterday about people getting tested for HIV before they get married. And Bongi was like, in Nigeria, you do that? I said, yes. I'm not going to go into all of those details, but I believe it has saved lives. So this story I proposed here and I highlighted here is about a young lady I know. I'm not talking about somebody from afar. My classmates, primary school. She said she was saved. She told me the story, how she wanted to get married to a man, and because of the premarital testing, she didn't know. It's HIV, no, they show for face. Okay, maybe AIDS they show, but HIV, no, they show for face. I'm sorry to speak pidgin. They got the test, and the man came out positive. And she told me the story. She said, do you know that man is dead? What if I had sex with the man, unprotected sex? What if, I'm going to marry him. The man is dead. She is now happily married with 2 children. So that's why we talked about it. So these are real stories, real cases, and they are out there. So I'm going to look at, all of these things I know we've talked about. I've learned a lot from the panelists. So the recommendations as we go back home. I want you to know that it's a privilege to be a young person in this dispensation of life, in this generation. It's a privilege. And youth, key population, and all stakeholders, UNFPA, UNAIDS, government parastatals, NGOs, FBOs, CSOs, we are all especially across Africa, we will achieve more if we have sovereignty in health, which we've talked a lot about in this conference. Sovereignty in health across Africa. And if you understand what we've been talking about, collaboration, we're not here to compete. I was sharing with some of my colleagues as well how some of my ICASA friends are still my friends, 10 years, 20 years, okay, not up to 20 years, but let me not exaggerate, 10 years, 5 years. They're still friends, like family, close friends. And anytime you go to that country, you're like, hi, how are you? I'm in your country. Can we work together? Online spaces, you can have programs. I've talked to her about my conference. My NGO holds an annual female conference, African young women. And we have a platform. We can do that online. You don't have to travel to the country. You can connect. Digital spaces are very, very effective. My NGO has a training as well. We do an academy for young people. And we have trainers from across the globe, from diaspora especially, young people who are very exposed, who some of them are mentored by the grace of God. And they're doing so well all around the world. But I always tell people, if you are now privileged to be in that platform, are you just going to say, I fly around the world, or you come back and give back to your young person of your country. You give back to your community and say, I am going to stand to raise other young people because I had that opportunity. Are we listening? So please, let us use our platforms, whether your NGO, your CBO, your FBO, to make impact. That for me is mentorship. I do a lot of mentorship. I'm privileged to be a TEF mentor. If you know TEF, Tony Lumelu mentor, and I am privileged. My mentee just got the funding of $5,000. I didn't have money to give her, but you can give that person the push they need. She has pushed me so much. I'm so privileged to have them. So at your level, do what you can to raise someone else in your stead. Don't just say, I'm the one traveling, I'm the one enjoying the DSA. Please, as we go back, let's have this consciousness. Sovereignty across Africa. You are in Cote d'Ivoire, I'm in Nigeria. We do a project together. You are in South Africa, I'm in Benin. Can we do a project together? Oh, hi, you are in the Philippines. Can we do a project together? We would achieve more. Please. Okay, so I'm sure you will get this slide if you need it. And then, yeah. Okay, yes, so the recommendation. So we have to make this pledge. We would all stand up right now and make this pledge. Because the topic is, now I know my HIV status. I'm negative, I'm positive, whatever. What is the next thing I need to do? So we're going to make this pledge. Can we all be upstanding, please? So, HIV voluntary counseling and testing, especially among the young African population, is key. That's why we're talking about testing, counseling and testing. And that's why we mentioned mental health issues. I'm so grateful for that. Please, don't just go and be testing people. It can really be depressing. Now that I know my status, I pledge, so we're going to take that. Now that I know my status, I pledge to take responsibility for my own health and that of my community by playing my part. Henceforth, I will ensure that support for the government and leaders of my country and members of my community becomes my top priority to achieve their annual health goals. A healthy behavioral lifestyle of wellness and wholeness for citizens, especially young Africans, is possible. Very good. Let's put our hands together for ourselves. I think that's the next. Thank you, and God bless you.